Hello and welcome to Program News at 7, where every story shapes a world. I'm your host, Mahanur Qureshi. Let's take a look on the top stories we are going to discuss in tonight's show. Talks between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban regime in Istanbul ended in a stalemate as Islamabad reiterates its firm and principled stance on halting cross-border terrorism emanating from Afghanistan. Israeli attacks on Gaza continues as the Hamas hands over the body of a deceased captive. Turkey issues arrest warrants for genocide against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior officials in his government over the war in Gaza. As climate change intensifies, the challenge of managing water resources from floods to drought has never become greater. Those were the stories we are going to discuss in tonight's show, and we'll start with the collapse of peace talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan that has raised serious concerns about the regional stability and the border security. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif has confirmed that talks have ended without any outcome. He stated that Pakistan's main demand was that Afghan soil should not be used against Pakistan, and if Afghan Taliban continue to do so, Pakistan would retaliate. He also expressed his concern that Taliban regime wants to rely on the verbal commitments. They don't want to go for any written agreement that would make such kind of talks uncertain and unreliable. So tonight we'll try to decode its economic, political and diplomatic implications, and for this we are joined by senior journalist Zahir Shah SHERAZI. Zahir Shah SHERAZI, welcome to the show. I'll start with that. We have seen that Afghan regime has already mentioned that they won't let anyone use their land against Pakistan, but now they are reluctant for any kind of written agreement. Why they are so much reluctant?
Thank you very much, Manur. I think, first of all, the main issue is who were negotiating in Istanbul and who were having peace talks in Doha. Perhaps this is not a representative government of Afghan people. It's a group of different militants who we can say are the children of war, and they don't have any central authority to be governed. And perhaps, as we have seen in Istanbul, they were here to, negotiate their own terms and conditions. They were discussing their own interest. If it was Sirajuddin Haqqani's representative, or the Kandahar Taliban's representative, or the Taliban from Khost or Kabul, I think these different groups, they were not negotiating the interest of Afghan people or the Afghan nation. They were having their own interests, which they were negotiating with Pakistan, and that was the main reason. Perhaps Pakistan was speaking to non-state actors. The reason Pakistan has shown such a restraint is because it never wanted to go into an unwanted war with Afghanistan, as it's destructive both for Pakistan and Afghanistan's security, as well as the central point in the security of the regional countries like Central Asian republics, Iran, China, and even Russia. So now, as you were asking that why they are reluctant to give guarantees, the main issue is even they don't have the central authority over a lot of areas of Afghanistan. Even the TTP militants, there are reports that they are controlling majority of small villages and towns near the bordering areas with Pakistan, especially in Khost, Logar, Paktia, Paktika, even the Kunard province. So this is one reason. Perhaps they might have been uh, 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 expecting that these militants would be rising against them if they take full-fledged action against. Then we have the Sirajuddin Haqqani group, which is very close to the TTP and Hafiz Gul Bahadur group, even Ittihadul Muslimin and other hardline Al Qaeda elements. So they also wanted to play their own game. So these are different aspects. And yes, the the uh, the factor which is mostly now very powerful is the Indian influence, because the Afghan Taliban regime is now more tilted towards India. Amir Khan Muttaqi, he's basically from Helmand, and he's leading another group of Taliban. So I think that there are different vested interests of these Taliban groups, which has led to the failure of these talks.
Exactly, exactly. Mr. Shirazi, you have mentioned a very important concern that Pakistan might be negotiating with the non-state actors because they are not the true representatives of Afghan citizens. Now we have seen 3 rounds of discussion, 3 rounds of negotiations. They have collapsed. No, agreement was made out of it. So what do you think? Pakistan shown a very flexible stance that we are ready to negotiate. We will give you something in return. We'll discuss about that as well. We'll talk about the Indian element in it. But what should be the next move of Pakistan? Pakistan should resume the talks, try to, get back to them again, or what should be the, next step of Pakistan in such a condition where Pakistan is trying really hard to have a strong relationship with the neighbors, but neighbors are, being played by the other actors?
Well, actually, Pakistan has a very clear stance. I think we have two concerns. First, the Afghan soil should not be used by the proxies like Indian proxies and other hostile enemies who are interested in neutralize the BRI CPAC project, or even they use Afghan soil as a forward spying base and an operational base. So this is one concern, which is a genuine concern for the Pakistani authorities as well as the Pakistani military. The second is the presence of terrorist groups which are wanted: the TTP, BLA, ETIM, TIP, IMU. These are very known groups which are declared terrorist by the international community, by the United Nations Security Council, by the United Nations, as well as by United States. So now, what is the logic that Afghan authorities are sheltering them? Rather, they are funding them in the name of charity, in the name of helping out their jihadi brothers. So this is a very serious concern. I think what Pakistan can do, Pakistan has done maximum. They have shown maximum restraint for the last 4 years. Last time you might have seen after the takeover of Afghanistan by Taliban in 2021, they set free all those TTP militants. They broke the jails. So that was the point of concern, that all TTP militants, including Maulvi Fakir and many others, they were issuing statement on the media that they are likely to go to Afghanistan and take over and establish an Islamic rule there. So that was the point of concern, and that's why Pakistan's intelligence chief went there. That issue was very much politicized. The CIA chief was there. A number of other intelligence officers were there to, convey a very clear message to Afghan regime, Afghan Taliban regime, that such militant groups should be contained and they should be, controlled. But now I think they are openly moving around. They are strengthening. They are being constantly funded, and even we have now sufficient evidence that the Afghan intelligence network is constantly interacting with them in pushing them into the Pakistani side of the border. Secondly, there are intelligence reports that why the Afghan Taliban were delaying these talks, but that was the reason that most of these militant groups and the top leadership is now relocated into the populous areas of Afghanistan. And the reason obviously is that if Pakistan is going to strike them, there would be human casualties, there would be collateral damage, and again the firebrand media groups as well as the Taliban media outlets, they will start misusing those strikes and will be creating a humanitarian kind of a crisis there. So I think the real issue is now what Pakistan can do. Pakistan can now take up this issue with Saudi Arabia, which has a very huge influence on almost all Taliban groups. They can take this issue to the OIC. They can write letters. Even the United Nations Security Council is another forum. Pakistan has very tactfully shown the world that Afghan soil is used by the militant elements. They are threatening the security of Pakistan. We are having daily attacks on our security forces. So now this is the time the world should come forward, because now the agenda of Afghan Taliban is not limited to Afghanistan. They wanted to export this extremism and religious intolerance to Central Asian republics, to China, to Pakistan,
Shirazi,
as
Mr.
they are
Shirazi,
extending.
Mr. Shirazi, you have mentioned the role of Saudi Arabia in that situation. We have seen that Turkey and Qatar have already facilitated such talks, and it was a third round of negotiation. Afghanistan has not shown any kind of flexibility in it. Do you really think in the future any other country, any other state would come into it, try to negotiate between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Wouldn't that make them frustrated in such condition where one party is not ready to negotiate, one party is not ready to sign any agreement, one party is not ready for any kind of written agreement? So wouldn't that make the mediators frustrated?
Well, I think, Turkey is already frustrated. Qatar is already frustrated. Now, that's why Saudi Arabia has not jumped into a direct conversation, because they knew that even these people, when they took power in 2001, they had agreements in the holy city of, Mecca, but still that agreement was also not acknowledged by the different Taliban groups who were ruling at that time. Hikmatyar was there, Burhanuddin Rabbani was there, and even they started a civil war between them. So I think they are not trustable. Pakistan has done what it could have done. I think Khwaja Asif's stance is very clear, that if attacks are coming on Pakistani soil, they are going to retaliate, and this is the only way. The second thing, how the Taliban leadership is trying to make them relevant by issuing irrelevant statement, by doing propaganda warfare. And in this propaganda warfare, the hostile accounts, the Indian, social media accounts, they are more or less, they are controlling all this narrative and propaganda. So this is also another aspect. And an important issue is why the Taliban are doing this. First of all, they are, a non-inclusive government. By sending a message to the world again and again, coming to Doha, then coming to Moscow, now going to Istanbul, they wanted to present themselves to be a true Afghan government. Rather, they have not been accepted by anyone as a legitimate government of Afghan people. Still, the US, even Pakistan, and other countries are demanding that the interim Afghan Taliban regime should have a conclusive government which should have representation of all the ethnicities. Now, this is 42% of the Pashtun population. Almost 58% of the population is out of this Afghan regime. And among those 42% Pashtun population, majority of the groups are not siding with Kandahar or with Sirajuddin Haqqani. So this is a very serious issue. And importantly, Pakistan is, at war with a group of Taliban. Pakistani government or state or the Pakistani people, they are not at war with Afghan people. So this is a point which has to be clarified, because a group of Afghan warlords, rather religious warlords, they are trying to dictate Pakistan, which is not acceptable to such a powerful nuclear state. And I think this is the time Pakistan should be responding with full force. This is our right.
Yes, and that's very important. Your point is well taken. And in this scenario, we have seen that India is taking benefit out of it. They're trying to promote, and they're trying to promote the agenda of hatred between the people of two states. Mr. Shirazi, we have seen that Pakistan proposed a joint counterterrorism mechanism to be operated from Torkham and Chaman. How much feasible it would be to counter terrorism, and especially the proxies that were operated through Afghanistan and Pakistan?
Well, actually, there was a proposal that Turkey and Doha should be having an oversight and monitoring of such like cross-border incidents. But the main issue is the Taliban regime is not accepting TTP, BLA, and other terrorist groups as terrorists. They are branding them as groups which have political differences with Pakistan. This is a very serious issue. They are going again back to the era that in 2004 the TTPs were formed. TTP is Pakistan's internal problem, BLA is Pakistan's internal problem. So what the question is, why they are sheltering the Pakistani enemies who are on their side? This is the main question. As far as this mechanism is concerned, I think it's a huge border. It's more than like 2,600 kilometers. It's not possible to have a surveillance or to establish, independent and monitoring units all over the border, because it's a porous border. The terrain is very rugged. You cannot have access to monitor. Rather, yes, there are mechanism of this latest security and gadgets should be used. The surveillance equipment like the drones and air surveillance. That is the only point. And Pakistan has given a number of proof to the negotiators, rather the guarantors in Istanbul as well as Doha, that how the militants are trying to infiltrate. They've been handed over visual proofs. They have been handed over, the physical presence of these militants while crossing into Pakistan. So I think this mechanism, rather, I don't know how it's going to work. But on the other side of the border, you don't have the security checkposts. You are not stopping those terrorist elements. Rather, you are facilitating them. A number of letters recently, which has surfaced, the intelligence, Afghan intelligence groups, they have been asking their bosses in Kunar, Paktia, Paktika, and Khost to facilitate and help out these TTP terrorists to cross into Pakistan. So these are, undeniable evidences that such mechanism would not be able to work between Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Exactly, and that was the main demand of Pakistan, that Afghan soil must not be used against Pakistan, and if the Afghan militant would do so, Pakistan would retaliate. But we have seen that in exchange we have offered that will fully open the border, will facilitate them with the trade, will facilitate them with the food, medicine and other goods. Why Afghanistan is so much reluctant to accept this offer? We have seen the number and position of Afghanistan in global hunger index, in global gender index. They have seen their position, how much the people are suffering inside Afghanistan. Why they are so much reluctant? Because in exchange we have a grand offer for them. We just want them not to use their land against us.
Actually, this is a stubborn attitude, as I already mentioned, that they don't have a centralized policy. They just wanted to continue their rule, and this ragtag, children of war, which I would say, just the creation of this like more than 4 or 5 decades of war there. The central authority at the time of Mullah Umar, they used to have allegiance to him, but I think Mullah Hebatullah, he is also very controversial as far as the different Afghan Taliban groups are concerned. There are more than 7 to 80 small groups which have commanders of like having a group of 80, 100, and maybe 200, 400 fighters. So I think they have different perception. They just wanted to survive because, yes, they do have an agenda of fighting jihad and infidels, and they are claiming, as we are getting claims from different Taliban leadership, that they have defeated the USSR, they have defeated the United States, and it's time they should be defeating Pakistan. But it's very different. What they had fought, it was all-out support by the Pakistan. Still, it's very unfortunate that majority of these Taliban leadership, which are now today calling the shots, they had been visiting different countries on Pakistani passports. They were sheltered in Quetta. They were supported, in different areas of Pakistan. They were rather protected. So I think another reason why the Taliban are not accepting, it's a very, serious kind of concern for Pakistan. But now the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, it is also using this Pakistan-Afghanistan conflict as a tool to give a message to the world that all Afghan nation is united, but they are not. Afghan resistance front led by Ahmad Masood, also the political front of the Northern Alliance, they are opposed to him. Rashid Dostum has started raising voices. Gulbuddin Ikpatyar, who is one of the powerful Pashtun commander, he is not part of the active government. So I think the message is very clear that this small group of Taliban regime, they really wanted to put the Afghan people in a very difficult situation. Now this winter is setting in, and those millions of Afghan refugees, they are likely to be sent back as the borders open. So that would be another challenge. Then inside, you have people who are opposed to Taliban's policies. They are opposed to their actions against the non-Pashtuns, especially Tajik, Uzbeks, Hazara, and the minority Shia community in northern Afghanistan. So I think there are complex problems which the Taliban regime wanted to put in one bag, and that is that they have to resist Pakistan. Pakistan is a tyrant state, and this is the narrative through which they wanted to give a message to their own people that they must be united against Pakistan. But this is not the actual case. The actual case is people are opposed to this tyrant regime, which don't have women rights, we don't have the human rights. Even this regime don't have rights for the non-Pashtuns who make like more than 58% of Afghan's population.
Exactly, and that's the problem, that Afghan regime is unable to understand that why they are being opposed by their own people inside Afghanistan, and why other countries are trying to build stronger relation between the two states. The geopolitical situation, the geopolitical position of Afghanistan is very important. It is a landlocked country, and it is very important for Afghanistan to have good relationships, peaceful relationships with the neighboring countries. We have seen that Turkey and Qatar have moderated the talks. Do you really think that Afghanistan understood their position, understood the offer, because these offers cannot be made again and again by the other countries? And what would be the next step of Pakistan if they are not ready to accept, they are not ready to sign any agreement, they're not ready to listen to the people who are opposing them, they're not ready to listen to the other countries they are trying to mediate? What would be the next Pakistan? What do you think as a political commentator?
Yeah, Pakistan has given all the chances for peace. They have agreed repeatedly to the demands and requests by Qatar and Turkey. Yes, Turkey and Qatar might have their own influence, even on the northern alliance, like Uzbeks, Tajiks, and Hazaras there. Qatar is having a complete influence over the Taliban leadership. Majority of their families are living in Qatar. During this war and negotiation, a number of these people had been in talks with the US even. But I think this is the time the international community should realize they should not be leaving alone Pakistan and Afghanistan to go into an unwanted war. And the actual issue is rooting out terrorism. As we have seen, this Moscow format, countries have very clearly conveyed to Afghan authorities that if they are not taking care of this terrorism, they would be having a joint action against the terrorist elements. I think China is on board, Russia is on board, Iran is now, in very close agreement with Pakistan that Afghan soil is being used against all of these countries. So I think if God forbid we go into war again, I think it will be very destructive. Yes, Pakistan would have a little bit of losses, but the losses which will be inflicted on a ragtag guerrilla force of Afghan Taliban, that would be more dangerous, because if Taliban are dislodged in Afghanistan, again, we would be having a civil war like situation. Al Qaeda is here, ISK is here, the TIP is here. So I think the entire region would be volatile. So I think war is not a solution. We have to give another chance to negotiations as well. But I think it's not the Pakistan's choice. Now it's international community which should pressurize Afghanistan to get rid of all these terrorist elements and terrorist organization, because this is their national and international obligation. The promises which they had made in Doha, I think this was the part of the agreement why the non-inclusive Taliban group was imposed on the Afghan people. So I think they should fulfill their commitments.
Exactly. Your point is well taken. Thank you so much. Mr. Zahir Shah Shirazi is a senior journalist, and he clearly mentioned that it is very important to know that war is not the solution and we have to give it another chance. But for this, advanced flexibility is very much needed. We are going towards a break. We'll be right after that. Welcome back to program News at 7. Now we are moving towards Gaza situation, where Gaza has been left in ruins after the years of conflict. We have seen there are thousands of homes destroyed, millions of people have been affected with it, and there are a lot of plans that have been issued regarding the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Gaza. We have seen the local efforts like Phoenix of Gaza to the international ideas like Gaza Riviera. So tonight we'll discuss about the challenges behind the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Gaza city, and we will discuss about what are the hurdles in it. For that we are joined by former Ambassador G.R. Baloch. G.R. Baloch, welcome to the show. I'll start with the political issues and regional issues and political interest and regional interest in Gaza situation that are creating hurdle in construction and rebuilding of Gaza. How do you see it?
Thank you. See, the biggest hurdle is the fascist regime of Israel and Israel's policy, and essentially denial at various levels, philosophically, politically and historically the claims of Palestinians to their holy land, to their motherland, and unfortunately, an unreasonable support that Israel has it, that becomes its forte to violate all the laws, all the treaties, all the truths that come across. But at this point of time, the good news is that the Islamic world is together. The last meeting held in Istanbul by the OIC foreign ministers, which were very important because these were the foreign ministers, the governments which held talks with President Trump. And after that, the 20 point plan for peace in Gaza was announced. Now, the problem is that that is done, the truce is there, but as we know that over 250 Palestinians, innocent civilians have died since the truce was signed or agreed to. And that continues to be there. Now, the most important thing is that the stabilization force that is being visualized to make sure that there are no violations of this truce has yet to take place. So there are several steps. Number one step is that United Nations has to sanctify it through a resolution at the UN Security Council. Then a mandate has to be given, mandate in the terms of as to what will be the TORs, what will be the time duration that the stabilization force will undertake this enormous arduous responsibility. And then which are the countries which generally we have an idea, but still these are all tentative ideas. So essentially, the UN has to play a role. It has to sanctify this peace. And most important thing is that while truce has to be maintained, important thing is to get the commitments of Israel to stage 2 and stage 3. That is withdrawal of Israeli troops, and then implementation of the reconstruction of Gaza, and then return of all those people who are internally displaced, are those who have fled or left the Gaza Strip. So I think there are several logistical, military, diplomatic, political challenges, but they have to start from the UN agreeing to a resolution where the support of the international community has to be given to the 20, so that this peace plan has to be an agreed peace plan by the international community. Yes.
And that's very important to have an agreed plan by international community, because on one side we have seen there are a lot of modern and fancy plans for the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Gaza, like Phoenix of Gaza or Gaza Riviera, where they are talking about the AI powered generated cities. But on the other hand, we don't know from where to start, from cleaning the rubbles to training the people, or from reconstruction of the homes, or from rescuing the people, or from the rehabilitation of people. It is not clear from where it should be started. So we are talking about the extreme of it, the AI powered generated cities where there would be everything AI powered. But on the other hand, we have seen the reality where homes are still destroyed, people are still struggling, they are not getting the food. So where it should be started?
Where to start is a big dilemma that the international community faces. But I think practically speaking, first of all, is adherence to the truce between Israel and Gaza. Then is the stationing of the stabilization force in Gaza. And then, in fact, the plan is already there. The Arab foreign minister had agreed to a reconstruction plan. The money has been kind of agreed to and promised, actually, 500 billion worth of. So I think the most enormous and arduous, again, task will be to clean up the debris and the ruins of the Gaza, because over 90% of Gaza has been razed to ground by criminal bombing by Israel. And in fact, some of the estimates say that it might take between 3 to 5 years to just clean up the debris. So that be the case. So I think we are looking at more than 3 years at least to reconstruction, to restart. provided other provisions are met. That is, Israel adheres to the truce, and that the normal life of Palestinians starts. Even today, I mean, like that, the Palestinians are not getting adequate assistance that they was promised in the 20-point plan. They were supposed to have over 2,000 trucks to cross over, but instead there are a few hundreds which cross, and the food is not sufficient, the shelter is not sufficient, the medicines are not sufficient, the tents are not sufficient. So I think the U.S. Government has an enormous responsibility, a moral and legal, because it is no less than the president of the U.S. has undertaken to be the chairperson or chairman of the Peace Council that he terms as the highest body where he will supervise that the peace is really given a chance. So essentially, the challenge is that the world has to emphasize that after so many wars, after so many bloodletting, let's give peace a chance. It is good for the Palestinians, obviously, but it's good for Israel itself. After all, how many more generations Israel would be fighting these futile, like these criminal and cruel wars against Palestinians? So I think it has to come to an end, and I think there is at least at the political level, at the moral level, at the legal level, there is a consensus in the world that this wound has to be after 70 years or so between Palestinians and Israel has to be healed. It has to be put down one way or the other. The hostility and in fact a morning of peace, a morning of prosperity, and humanity has to dawn. After all, humans are part of a family. So why do they forget it? But
Mr. G.R.
unfortunately,
Baloch, your point is well taken. Mr. G.R. Baloch, your point is well taken. Thank you so much for joining us. And that was the problem, and that was the major concern when a 20 points plan was finalized. Most of the people, most of the analysts around the world were talking about that who will govern it. And that's the loophole we are facing nowadays, because Gaza is not getting the aid that was mentioned, the proper aid that was mentioned. The trucks are halted to be there for aid. So that was mentioned in the 20 points plan. But we have seen there are a lot of loopholes in it, and nobody is governing that as it was finalized. Thank you so much. Mr. G.R. Baloch was with us. He's the former ambassador. Now we are moving towards back home, where we are going to talk about the climate change, the water resources, because Pakistan has observed Water Week under the theme From Scarcity to Sustainability, collaborative pathways for water, food and climate resilience. We have seen that the extreme weather conditions are fluctuating us from floods to droughts. We have seen that we are having the water around us. It's same like you're saying that water everywhere, but not a single drop to drink. We are not storing it, we are not consuming it. How to save it? We'll talk about that. And there are a lot of measures which citizen can take. We always look up to the government, the state to take measures to store water, but there are a lot of measures which we can take. To talk about that, we are joined by Mr. Mohsin Hafeez. He is the Strategic Program Director of IWMI. Mr. Mohsin, welcome to the show. I'll start with the current water challenge which Pakistan is facing, and we have seen that we are still fluctuating from floods to the droughts. We are not saving water. Why we are not saving water? We have water around us, but the water which we are drinking sometimes or usually it is contaminated. So what are the challenges and what should be addressed at the priority?
Thank you so much for inviting me for this TV news. Pakistan is facing the extreme climate variability and climate shocks. When we look around in Pakistan, we have a typical monsoon season where we are getting it around roughly around 3 months, July, August, September, 80% of the water. And the remaining 9 months, we are getting it only 16 to 20% of water. That creates a big problem because we have only water storage of around 30 days of water storage. What that means, either on one hand side, 3 months we are facing the acute the flood thing, and on the other hand side we are facing the 9 months the drought, and then adding up all those sort of things are there. We don't have it the early warning system. When we are talking it about the floods and drought, there is a system, but system is guiding the information, but that's not really providing to the end user, to the communities at the level where the communities are well prepared and the government is able to take the action on that one. To make the whole thing complicated, we are growing the agriculture, which is using around 90% of water, 90% of fresh water. And that water is again, we are facing the problem in the Kharif and Rabi season, where we don't have enough water in that one in the dam, and then that's creating a lot of challenge. So I think in terms of we need to change certain things. We need to first fundamentally we need to improve the water governance, because the water is considered starting, and we need to look around that was federal as well as provincial issue. But then there is a need of much better planning of water sources if we really want to go on that one for resolving our issues. We need to go for a climate smart agriculture, because agriculture is using 90% of water, and which is the most inefficient if we compare around the neighboring countries across the globe. And that's where we need to do on the much more better technologies and everything. And on the top of that one, the groundwater is acutely, basically we are pumping too much water groundwater, and that's depleting the aquifer. And we need to also working it on that one, how we could introduce a nature-based solution for augmentation of water, especially during the flood season. We need to build a large dam, that's very critical, but country is facing the financial crisis. What about that one? The whole world is applying on a nature-based solution and everything. In Islamabad, we have introduced a nature-based solution. One of the site which was there, and that generated around 30 million gallons over the 2 years of period of time. And CDA, Capital Development Authority, has upscaled with the 100 more the nature-based solution, and that's going to around 230 million gallons of water. So we need to replicate those sort of things across the whole Pakistan at the national scale level and everything. And lastly, there is also the important thing is coming on that one, the policy implementation and the raising the awareness to the public as well as on the government side, and then saying it how we could implement, whether we are talking about water for agriculture, or whether we are talking about water for domestic, or whether we are talking about the water for industry. There is a need of efficient water use.
You have already mentioned about the mechanism and replication of it, and that's the need of an hour. But how modern irrigation system and how the water saving technology play a role in reducing the pressure on agriculture? We have seen that our land needs water. Most of the time we are running short of water. We cannot irrigate the land, and sometimes we are getting a lot of water due to floods. And these are the things we need to address specifically while harvesting the crops. We should know we have to adapt ourselves according to the weather condition, according to the changing weather conditions. So how much modern technology is guiding the farmers regarding that, and how much the different organizations, international organizations or local organizations working in collaboration with them are working with the farmers?
Okay, thank you. That's a very important question. When we are talking about the irrigation modernization, we need to there are the lot of practices, but we can do it at the International Water Management Institute under the FCDO Water Sources Accountability Program in Pakistan. We have introduced a soil moisture sensors, because typically the problem is the farmers are getting it's a supply driven system. Farmers are getting the water after 7 days, whether they need a water or they don't need a water. They are consuming that water, they are using that water, and that they are applying excessive water. And because they don't have a reliability or surety, they will be after 7 days again they will be getting water. So therefore, we have introduced the soil moisture sensors, and those soil moisture sensors are guiding to the farmers in a very simplified, like a traffic light diagram. It's telling them green mean that they don't need to apply the water, and then the red mean is that they need to apply the water, and then the blue mean is showing that when it's just they have saturated water. And that's when we have deployed around the 500 sensors across Pakistan, and that's guided us around that one. For a wheat crop, we are able to save around 20% of the water, and improving the productivity. For maize, we are able to save 18%, and for sugarcane, around 25%. There is a huge potential for doing that kind of the modern the soil moisture sensors and everything. In addition, we have deployed also working with the using the artificial intelligence with the satellite based remote sensing, and then guide providing the irrigation advisory service as a pilot project in the Okada district. And that's what that means. It's guiding to the farmers about forecasting in the next 7 days what will be the likely the irrigation demand. So farmers understand what's happening at his farm scale level, and he's also getting an irrigation advisory service that's telling that whether he need to apply water or not. And those sort of the practices that need to be replicated across the whole Pakistan. In addition to that one, there's very simplified thing. Instead of flood irrigation, we need to go for the other practices, and depend on the crop type and everything and soil type, we could go for the high efficiency irrigation system, which could be drip irrigation system, or then also for irrigation practices. Instead of flood, we can go for alternate wetting and drying, the practice which is typically for rice field, because for rice field we have practices, we are keeping the flooded water, and that's giving the just to illustrate on that one, in Pakistan for 1 kilogram of rice we are using it around 4 to 5,000 liter of water. In world it's around 400 liter is good enough to produce a 1 kg of rice. So we have a huge water losses, and we are very inefficient in agriculture sector, and that's what we need to introduce the technologies and everything. Lastly, coming at the domestic sector, often we have a practice at the home, we open the tap, whether we are doing the wudu or whether we are doing the water the utensil, we need to make sure that doing the conservation of water, even for taking the shower, we should not be spending 20 minutes 30 minutes on that, and we need to think about the water conservation in all those one, and that's where the community and media role is important.
And that's very important message for the people out there. And then I want your comments on COP30 as well. From the last few years, we have been presenting our case very much strongly, and we have presented a case that Pakistan is less than 1% contributor to it, but we are the victims of it. We are the affected people from it. We are the affectees of it. So how do you see, what are your hopes with the COP30 in Pakistan delegation is ready to present our case there? What are your hopes with that?
To me, that one, there are two fronts. I think that one, yes, the Pakistan is only producing less than 1% greenhouse gas emission, but then one is about the climate change impact, which is impacting, but our problems are triggered by the poor governance, and we have a poor planning. I mean, the at the COP, we will be presenting the case, but COP is already ongoing and everything. I don't think so we'll be able to bring that one, the lot of funds from the COP. Yes, we could present our case and everything, but the problem fundamentally lies in 2023, when there was a flood, in 2022 flood, Pakistan was able to get the pledges of $10.2 billion, but we were able only to submit it, the projectized things and some practical actions only for $2 billion. So we were not able to materialize the funding which is available, which was pledged by the different donors. And still Pakistan is very poor in those kind of that one, submitting the projectized thing. There will be pledges, but again, are we able to materialize the pledges for Pakistan? Honestly, as a scientist, as a working with the, I think we will try our best. We will improve. We will learn a lot, but still, the Pakistan is far behind on that one, to make sure that how we could materialize and secure the climate financing. Beside that one, the COP30, we need to fundamentally improve our governance. Taking the example of 22 or 2025 flood, no one is saying that one, that we should be building the houses or the housing societies on the river path. That's basically, even that when the flood protection plan of 2016 is clearly specifying. Justice Mansoor, when the 2010 flood came, there was a clear finding, the water should, there will no housing societies will be built along that one river path. But have we learned any lessons from them? No. Still, we are allowing those housing societies and everything. That's as a nation which we need to change it. There we need to enforce strict laws, and then severe penalties for the people, and especially that for the who are allowing the commercial property, the houses and everything for building on the river path. And then on the top of that one, they need to link up with the better flood warning system, because we have witnessed another thing is 22 we got it $10.5 billion pledges. 25 world has not looked around on that one in the way like
Exactly.
the catastrophe, like the things the people were looking at, or the global world was looking around in 2022. So we need to think about.
Your point is well taken. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohsin Hafeez, for joining us to talk about the water scarcity and sustainability. We were joined by Mr. Mohsin Hafeez, who is the Strategic Program Director of IWMI. In today's show, we were talking about the of peace talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Then we have talked about the Gaza situation, where living houses and people are in deteriorated condition. And then we came back home, discussed about the water scarcity, discussed about the water week that have been observed, and talked about the issues which we are facing and what can be done in this regard. So that's it from today's show. This is your host Mahnur signing out. For news updates, keep watching News at 7.